If you were to play a game, it would be most advantageous to know the rules of the game before you begin. But here we find ourselves in the middle of a game that we don't even know the name of. If you live in Australia, I'm going to tell you the name of this game, and I will also explain the rules. The name of the game is Deception. And before I begin to discuss the rules of this game, I need to bring you up to speed with some of the historical facts so that the rules make sense. On the 26th of January 1910, the day we call Australia Day, is the day that we became an occupied territory. 8 treaties were signed regarding the Hague War on land, concerning the recovery of debts, the customs of war, and the opening of hostilities. These treaties still apply now. Why did this happen, and what does this mean? Due to previous wars in the early 1800s with America, Great Britain accrued huge debts. They borrowed money from the Rothschild banking cartel, who also lends money to the Holy See, which is the Vatican. The Rothschilds also own the World Bank and the IMF, which are linked to the United Nations. In 1908, the great debt collectors came knocking on our door by the way of the Great White Fleet. They came to Australia to set down the terms and conditions of the payment of these loans, because Australia is part of the Commonwealth and it was used as collateral for these loans. And so begins usufruct, using the fruits of the land to pay off debt owed. The Hague Treaties set up the rules of engagement during the war. America, as a foreign administrator of these loans, set up a de facto government. Australia celebrated the arrival of the Great White Fleet and was oblivious to the truth of the takeover.
Into Sydney Harbour come units of the United States Navy. Now here is my Australian colleague to tell you how Australia made open house to the American squadron.
Yanks are coming, and the tramp of their feet echoes round the world. With only 24 hours in which to prepare an outsizing welcome, Sydney really went to town. 500,000 people gather. The city turns on a real Broadway welcome. From tall office buildings shower confetti, streamers, balloons, old telephone books. Of course, they tore them up first. But what a sight! What a welcome! This marvelous demonstration of friendship and goodwill can only happen because the Pacific is still Pacific. This is no routine visit, and this is no routine welcome. The undemonstrative Aussie has come out of his shell, and with good reason.
The First World War spanned over 4 years and ended in November 1918. Australia was hit hard. 60,000 Anzacs sacrificed their lives so that Australia could have freedom, in the irony that we were under a foreign occupation. The League of Nations was set up in 1920, and our Prime Minister Billy Hughes spoke up for us and secured our nation's right to be a self-determined nation because of the 60,000 Anzacs that were killed and the 2,000 injured.
Our first duty as Australians is to Australia, to its industries, primary and secondary.
King George V declared that the Commonwealth of Australia was to be a self-determining nation, which was noted in the changes to the Royal and Parliamentary Titles Act in 1927, and the Anzac Shrine was built in Melbourne in 1934 to honour our Anzacs. The victors of war write the history. In 1939, at the beginning of the Second World War, a treaty was forced into entry called the Declaration Regarding the Teaching of History, Revision of School Textbooks. This treaty outlines the way history is to be taught in schools to hide the truth that we are indeed an occupied territory under the rules of war. The foreign occupation foresaw the dangers that may arise through the presentation of certain historical events in school textbooks that people might disagree with. In other words, Australians might be a little bit upset to know that they were under foreign occupation. On the 24th of October in 1945, the United Nations was formed. And in 1948, the Nationality and Citizenship Act was passed, which formally announced the United Nations as the trustee of the Commonwealth of Australia. An important fact to be aware of is that we all became citizens of Australia and not imperial subjects. This meant that we all officially boarded the citizenship and joined the foreign occupation. Another interesting fact is, according to the Acts Interpretation Act of 1901, Australia and the Commonwealth of Australia are defined as, when used in geographical sense, includes the Norfolk Island, the territory of Christmas Island, and the territory of the Cocos-Keeling Islands, but does not include any other external territories. Now this means that the landmass that we know as Australia is in actual fact not. So what are we citizens of, and why did they declare Australians to be citizens? 2 words: the United Nations, the UN. The UN is a privately owned organisation that is influenced by the global elite. They have been working towards a new world order, a one world government to make the world interdependent so that no one nation can be independent. The UN has many branches, such as the WHO, the World Health Organization, which promotes vaccinations for profit, the World Food Programme, which has destroyed the Australian farming industry to promote interdependence on other countries, the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, creating more poverty and debt for Australians and the world, the UN Population Fund, a eugenicist depopulation program, the World Meteorological Organization, controlling weather and climate, the UN Refugee Agency, creating displaced communities and refugees, the United Nations Climate Change, a diversion tactic to what is really going on, and the International Trade Centre, destroying small businesses, which is just to name a few. Now, the UN is funded by other private businesses and companies such as the World Bank and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And over the years, Australia gradually sold out and was sold off, treaty by treaty, act by act, by a de facto government that works for a foreign occupation. In 1973, Gough Whitlam signed Australia over to the Foreign Unidroit Treaty of Rome, handing the equitable title of mineral and energy wealth of Australia over to a foreign power, the head office in Rome. The US signed over the Unidroit in 1964, just after JFK was shot. Coincidence? The Australia Act of 1986 changed the Constitution relating to the Commonwealth of Australia, Constitution Act of 1901 UK. In short, the Constitution was created to protect the people of Australia from corrupt government. Bob Hawke, the Prime Minister of this time, made sure that this changed. This is the end of part 1, and in part 2 I'll be discussing the relevance of the crown and the flag, and in part 3 I will be disclosing the rules of the game, which is the remedy. This is your way forward. If you would like some more information, visit dawnkelly.com.au/blog and make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, Dawn Kelly. I also have a backup channel on brand new YouTube, Dawn Kelly in a Compass. Hope you enjoyed this video and have a beautiful day. Thank you.